Cool. Okay. Um, all right. If I ask any questions in between, because my work is always interactive, so will I be able to see the chats when people answer?
Yeah, you should be able to see the chats, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, that's important for me. Okay. Right. So, thank you very much, Sanjay, for inviting me today to be here. It's really an honor to be part of such a lovely initiative that Dan Utsav has. And I'm glad for all the rest who have joined. I cannot see you, but I'm really glad that we're all here together. Um, this 1 hour of togetherness. So, my name is Deepa Kiran. I narrate stories and I work with teachers in the field of education on how teachers could tell stories and bring about learning and development in children. And by learning and development, I mean language and concepts and emotional, cognitive, all of it. Yeah, we keep exploring what can happen with stories. So that's what I do. And today, what I hope that we could explore is a slightly deeper understanding of the art of storytelling itself, a little bit more about content of stories, because if we understand these two, then it's very easy to look at what could be the possible spaces this could lead us into, right? And then we will have, through interaction, through discussion, through self-reflection, hopefully will arrive at these various possibilities that the art of storytelling can offer us, particularly in this context where we are talking about those who are involved in causes that hold meaning for the entire society, for the entire environment. How can stories play a role there? Yeah, so I'd like to begin with a story. Are you ready to listen to a story? Yeah? Yep. Great. So it's a great way to begin, a session related to storytelling with, of course, a story. Yeah. So here's a story for all of you. And as we start, I'd just like to mention that I love narrating stories that have music in them, because music also contributes to imagery. Music also contributes to the settling down of emotions as much as stories do. Right? So, as we start the story, let's invite it musically wherever you are at your home. I'd like you to help us invite the story spirits. It's very simple. You have to listen carefully. You have to sing what I sing, and you have to do what I do. Okay? Wherever you are at your space, please join in this musical invitation of story spirits. Yeah? So, here we go. Sa pa sa pa sa. So thank you very much. We have invited the story spirits from up in the universe to come down right here to our Dan Utsav celebration. And the story is ready for you. It's a story that comes from a jungle. There was once a beautiful jungle with birds and bees, plants and trees, animals and insects and creepy crawlies. All of them lived in harmony. They loved to be there for each other, and every afternoon, all of the animals and the creepy crawlies would gather in the heart of the jungle under the big banyan tree with its outspread branches. They all settled under its cool shade as they all took their afternoon nap. A little bird, a sparrow, would hover right above the branches of the banyan, singing a soft melody. Kuyu kuyu chinna kuruvi pattu kuruvi na. Kuyu kuyu chilla kuruvi konja kuruvi na. And with the cool afternoon breeze, the little lilting song of the sparrow, the animals slept well in the shade. When the sun went down, they would all return to their respective homes. And life continued like this for very, very, very long until that one terrible day when two creatures that walked on two legs walked in to the jungle. They set up some and they cooked something. They ate it. They lit something. And when they left, they dropped off what they had lit. They left what they had lit, looked at each other and said, "Brother, it's time to go back to the city." They were gone. They were gone, but in just a few seconds, the wind caught, yes, the fire, the flames of the fire, and soon all across the jungle, there was a blazing fire. Fire on the fur of the animals, fire on the skin of the snake, fire here, there, everywhere, and helter-skelter, the animals ran for their lives. Run, run, save yourself, save yourself. They all ran here and there, the birds flew everywhere, everyone except the sparrow. The sparrow was still hovering near the banyan tree. "What are you doing? Go save yourself." But what about the banyan tree? How can we leave the banyan and go?" said the sparrow. The other said, "What? What mad rubbish are you talking? Of course you have to leave the banyan and go. Can you carry the banyan with you?" "We stupid. There's a fire out there. You have wings. You can fly. Just go save yourself." But the sparrow's heart would not listen. And so the sparrow went flying right to the edge of the jungle. And there she found a lake. She put her beak in it and came flying back right over the banyan. And she dropped 2 drops of water. She went flying again to the lake, put her small beak in it, came flying all the way back over the forest fire. Another 2 drops of water. The sparrow went back and forth and back and forth, and all the animals were watching her, saying, "Don't be silly." Some of them were giggling and laughing at her. "What are you going to do with 2 drops?" But the sparrow went on and on. Her chest was burning, her wings were getting tired, but she wouldn't stop. Finally, even the banyan tree said, "Everybody's right. Take care of yourself. Forget me." "How can I do that? You've given us shade every day," said the sparrow. And she went back and forth, dropping 2 drops each time, and back and forth, and she wouldn't stop at all. Now, from up above in the magical skies, the magical creatures looked down and they saw. They saw a jungle, they saw a burning forest, and they saw the animals running helter-skelter and a little sparrow going up and down, dropping 2 drops. The magical creatures were so touched by this sight that they began to cry. And you know what happened on earth when the magical creatures in the sky began to cry? Can anybody guess?
It started raining.
It started to rain. It started to rain and to rain and rain and rain. And soon the banyan tree was saved. The entire forest fire was doused. And once again, everybody was in peace and harmony. And after this, no one laughed at the sparrow anymore. And they remembered the sparrow, especially for her wisdom and her courage. So, this is the story that I wanted to start with. Um, I saw a comment there. It said, it's to me, I had a very specific reason for choosing the story, which I'll come to. But what I'd like to ask before I talk about that. Sorry, just give me a minute. I'm running out. My laptop is running out of charge. 1 minute. Yeah. So I'd like to ask those who just heard the story now, right? What comes to your heart, mind, spirit after hearing the story? Anything that comes to you? Any thoughts, any insights, any reminders? Anything is fine. It's an open-ended question. I'd really like to know what came to your mind when you heard the story.
Gratitude.
Gratitude, okay? Persistence pays off, okay?
Selflessness also.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Selflessness.
Selflessness, yeah. We are born to help others, said someone.
Joy of giving.
So much to Lion King Madagascar. Okay. You felt
Joy of
in the jungle. Sorry, joy of giving. Joy of giving. Yeah. Keep trying. Yeah. Anyone else? Anything that's coming to you after hearing the story?
So I think for me, the images of every, social cause, all the leaders that I have met. I mean, whenever I heard these birds, I could see them in them. Dr. Prakash Amte, Girish Kulkarni, Adik Kadam, Ashish Satav. I actually saw them because they're doing just that. There's a fire, and I could actually sense it through the story that what these people do actually.
Right, right. Yeah. Anyone else would like to share? Care. Okay. Yeah.
I also felt very calm, Deepa, by the way. I felt
Yeah.
very into the story, and I visualized being in the place.
Right, right. Yeah. So that is the power of stories and storytelling, right? That we vicariously experience. Um, that is, without experiencing, we experience that particular reality or that particular situation. Love the musical part of it, care, keep trying. I felt I was there in the jungle. I'm just going over the chats again. Relate to it so much, like to the Lion King in Madagascar. We are born to help others. Persistence pays off. Okay, yeah, so these are all the various responses that we got. Anyone else wants to add, you're most welcome, right? So, if we look at all these chat messages, it's like a spectrum of responses, right? We can't like entirely predict how is the story going to impact whom, but we broadly know that because of the choice of the content, that this is possible the spectrum of emotions that it could generate, right? Because of the kind of story I chose. If I'd chosen a different kind of story, then I would know, okay, possibly this is a spectrum that it would generate. So that's the beauty, first and foremost. So I am now going to flip it. I'm sharing that think of this story as something that if you choose to narrate, okay, you are now the listener of the story, the receiver. You received the story uh, from me in this situation at this moment. But suppose you are going to be the teller of this story, future, which I would like to very strongly suppose that the story travels through you to other people now, right? What would you imagine would be the context in which you would like to say it? For example, I'm just hypothesizing, maybe Sanjay might want to tell the story of one of the heroes, yeah, whom he mentioned. So could you just put it your name, Sanjay?
There is some echo. Where is it coming from? Indigo. I think it's Indigo. Who is Indigo? Yeah. Yeah. So I would say Ashish Satar, Dr. Ashish Satar.
Yeah, so let's just say we're talking about Dr. Ashish, right? So what we're really saying is that if you take up a concept or if you take up a personality, if you take up an issue which seems to connect with this story. At this moment, I'm just using the story because now we have all heard it. It's common knowledge for all of us, right? A good way, a very simple way is to narrate the story and then link it to, from there take it to. So, like this sparrow, I'm reminded of Dr. Ashish, in whatever way, in a very simple way, just link the story to the concept that you're going to talk about, right? Um, so, does anything come to your mind when you think of this story? Any concept or any particular, uh,
I'm reminded of when the story of Dr. Ashish he shared with me was when he first visited this tribal location, uh, and he was treating these the poorest of poor tribal people, um, where there was nothing. He had no infrastructure, and he wanted to medically treat them. So going to that place and still being persistent when there was nothing there. There was no medical facility at all. There was no ambulance. There was no hospital. There was no clinic as such. And to go there and still go and keep on trying despite of all the difficulties in a very remote location, which was not even connected. And I've been to this place, so I know how remote it is. Even now, forget when he started. And I've seen that picture of his where he's in a hut, and in that hut he is operating somebody on a operating table where there's no space for anybody to move. I remember that the bullock cart became an ambulance. So a person doesn't give up. He was not giving up. He was doing something or the other consistently to because his mission was very clear. So he was going back and back and back. I mean, to me, it's like that sparrow going back
yeah,
in the bottle. So there is a fire. The children who are dying, malnutrition deaths were highest in this area, in our country, which after so many years of progress, as we call it, and everybody doesn't want to be there. Nobody wants to be in a tribal village, so everybody
right.
goes away, right? It's a remote tribal village. Who cares? But here is somebody who's going back again and again, and despite of looking an impossible task, what he was doing. So I think that's the relation that comes to me between the sparrow and, as I see, Dr. Ashish.
Yeah.
Everybody, every non-profit leader that I've seen, I see the same. Never give up. Never give up.
Yeah. So if I have to, just take three of the ideas that you mentioned now, one was persistence. The other was there is um, a critical situation, which is our forest fire. Okay. There is the attitude of nobody caring, which the rest of the animals did not care.
You've gone on mute, Deepa. You've gone on mute.
Yeah. So I was mentioning that, the four of the things that you mentioned, that the situation was critical. Here there was the forest fire, that nobody cared, the animals did not care, that he was persistent, he kept at it, the sparrow kept at it, and that it was an apparently impossible task, which is exactly how it appeared to everybody, right? So straight away, four of the ideas that you spoke about, we have metaphors for those in this story, and all the metaphors are interconnected in this context, right? So it just fits in so well into what you are trying to convey. Similarly, stories serve us not just as metaphors, but as metaphors with a heart, metaphors in a context. And so, when we look for the connection between a story and our cause, or whatever it is we wish to strongly communicate, um, that's when we can use these tools. For example, the reason I chose this story is I have used it as part of a campaign which was for rainwater harvesting. Yeah. So shared the story, and already there have been so much discussions about water, need to save water, and this and that. And then we came to this topic. People were automatically able to make the connection because that was our context, right? And on a completely different note, there was a project where we needed funds, where we required individuals to pitch in. This was not to some big corporates or anything. We needed individuals to pitch in whatever small bits they could. It was a climate related project, and they wanted someone to be the voice. So we just sat down. It was overnight. I remember that it was at a friend's place, and we sat down. We recorded this story, and then we said that every drop of the sparrow matters. So please contribute your drop. So how it's up to us, so each of you, this story, there are about 34 of us here, so 34 people can come up with 34 ways of how this story can serve a certain purpose, possibly serve. And how clear we are on the purpose, and how well we build the connection, the link between our story and the purpose, or how well we select a story that is actually a metaphor for our purpose, or that's a metaphor to lead us to that purpose, to that cause, to that organization. That is what really makes sense. Is our starting point here. Okay, there's some message in the chat. This story is widely used by environmental enthusiasts. Yes, yes, yes. More in African countries. Yes, that's true. As I said, we used it in a context where it was simply about, each of you contribute what little you can, just like the sparrow did. So it's really how we are going to, one, look at the story ourselves. Two, how are we going to guide the viewing of our listeners? So we are offering them a lens. We're like, what? Look at it from here, or look at it from here. So the possibilities are immense. So this could be a story for environment, as someone said. This could be a story for collecting funds from individuals. Yeah. Um, um, I'm reminded of a recent, a talk that I was listening to. A friend sent me of Brené Brown. She talks about the story being data with a soul. So she talks about the idea of a story. A story is literally data with a soul. And definitely, the moment there is soul, there is life in it beyond just data, then that's when it catches our attention. And the story holds that rich possibility. So we can convey data about our organization, about our cause, about the person, a very specific person who is, it can definitely be filled with data, but data in a metaphorical manner and data which is rich with the soul. If I have to look at, analyzing what the word soul might mean, it might possibly mean a heart to heart connection. There's something in that data that tugs at your heart. It's not just data, and that's what stories are. Stories are data, they are linked, but they have a heart in them, right? So that's a very, very, I'm breaking the idea of story and telling, right? When it comes to the story, why are we looking at stories and not just information? We're looking at stories because they add the heart element, they add the soul element to it. And why are we looking at telling of a story? The act of narrating a story. Um, Again, I'd like to quote Dr. Brian Strum, who's been doing a lot of research on the mental aspects of storytelling, and he comes up with a very simple idea, which I really love. He says that in the act of storytelling, there is a web. There is a web created between the teller, the audience, and the story. So it's these three. It's the teller, it's the audience, and it's the story. So there's a web between the three. There's this magic, a bond of traveling together on this emotional journey and coming back safe. There is this bond of trust. The audience is trusting the teller to take them and to bring them back. Yeah. So there is a bonding, there is a web constructed at so many levels between the story, the audience, and the teller, which is really magical and extremely significant. And that's why the act of telling a story becomes so important. Not just reading it from a book is a different experience, right? Since we are talking about storytelling, so I'm talking about the content of a story and as well as the telling of a story, how both are equally significant for us, right? And also stories like these, like the one I just shared, typically have a protagonist, a character who's facing a problem, and the journey of that character through the problem. When the problem comes up, how is the person trying to, and further on what's happening, and then further on, is there support, is there no support, is the person succeeding, is the person not, that what we call the hero's journey. There's that entire arc of a hero's journey. If we are looking at any of the stories of organization, especially when it is in this sector, when we're talking about causes, there are very, very, very strong heroes journeys. So there's a lot of scope to tell these stories metaphorically. You can straight away tell the story of Dr. Ashish, like Sanjay shared with us. Of course, the stories of the personalities. What is another powerful way is like what we did just now. Start off by identifying. So what you could do, this was one story. If there is a particular cause in your mind, if there is a particular personality, a particular organization in your mind, then look at stories that you know, or look for stories that might be able to metaphorically convey what these people are doing or whatever is happening here, right? Folk tales especially, you will find a lot of very, very beautiful narratives. Like if you're talking about environment, I'm reminded again of Who Will Be Ningthao. That's a story by Indira Mukherjee. It's a story with multiple possibilities. With that, you can talk about environment, you can talk about compassion, you can talk about gender, because the story, covers all of these. There are, of course, zillions of stories that cover zillions of topics. What we're looking at is, can these metaphorically say what we want to say? One. Second, can they say without actually saying? Because that is the beauty of stories, you know. At the end of this story, there was nothing like, so, you know, you have to be persistent. That's the message I want to give you. That didn't happen, right? The story itself must sort of guide you to a space where you, with your own inner wisdom, are going to reflect and are going to arrive at possible insights. So if you can identify that kind of a story that works for what you wish to convey, then the story will unravel for the audience rather than instruct the audience. And that's precisely why we like stories, because stories don't instruct, stories allow for unraveling. Yeah. And stories are also a creative space. It's not like uh, something that's mechanical, something that you know, can put you in a space of boredom. It does exact opposite. It just fires your imagination, it fires your creativity. It lets you just think for yourself, it lets you go and experience that situation as if you existed there. Yeah, so all of these are very interesting possibilities with a story. And yeah, just to make the point, I'd you know, like to show you a small PPT. Okay, can I share screen now? Yeah. Hi, can I
Yes,
share screen now?
yes, you can.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah. So are you able to see my screen?
Yes,
Okay, right. So, you know, there were civilizations that never had the wheel. They had to push and pull their stuff all around. But there have been no civilizations that did not have storytelling. It has been part of every civilization, um, as old probably as speech itself, right? So there must be something significant with storytelling, something happening there. And when we spoke about the bond, you know, Dr. Brian Strum, the bond between the teller and the listener and the story. So, what story does is it brings strangers to bond together as friends. You know, there's a saying that a stranger is someone whose story you do not know. And consequently, a friend is a stranger whose story you know. Yeah. So stories have this rich possibility of bringing us together like this. And that is why it's really worth bringing it in into our communication, right? What happens when you listen to a story is it's the same thing that happens when you daydream. You know, you're dreaming of that ice cream, you can feel the taste, it's melting in your fingers, you can feel the metal of that trophy right around. It's so real. And that's what stories are like, you know, they literally let you daydream, except the only difference is you have the license to listen to stories. But daydreaming is like, what? Why are you daydreaming? Yeah, you know. So this is permitted. Storytelling is permitted daydreaming. Yeah, so that's why I like to call storytelling as licensed and channelized daydreaming. Now, why do I call it channelized? Because depending on your story, you as the teller can guide, you know, can guide the way of possible thought for your listeners. So the story and you, the teller, can guide the way. That's why it's channelized, right? And the interesting part is that instead of instructing, telling someone, I'll tell you what to do, this is what you have to do, that's what you have to do, which nobody likes. I mean, just try telling a 2 year old, don't touch that, and see what's the next thing the 2 year old does. They'll go and touch, right? So grown-ups are no different. Deep down, none of us want to be instructed, none of us want to be told, I'll tell you what to do, I'll tell you what's right. Instead, it's real fun to have stories being told, because in a story the person will find out for themselves. So not only are they not instructed, they also have the thrill of their intelligence being exercised. I will find out, there's that whole thrill and excitement. Um, so these are the reasons why we really should consider employing storytelling in our communication. And these are the ways we can employ it, build it into our communication, trigger the critical thinking, and do all of this in a space of growing the creativity of our audience. So in every way, we're keeping them engaged. Their creativity is completely fired. Their critical thinking is triggered because they have to think deeper. They have put themselves in the situation of that person, of that character, of the sparrow, of the jungle, of the forest fire. And you are communicating all of this in this wonderful, in this wonderful container called a story, right? So these are the reasons and these are the ways how we could work with stories. And talking of stories about storytelling, as I use the word container, I got reminded of one small story. So there was one Guruji living in a village who had, he was an old Guruji and he had a young disciple. And people would come, oh, Guruji, my wife, oh God, she never works in the house. She's such a lazy woman. Somebody will come. Another fellow will come. Oh, Guruji, I have such a big loan. I don't know how to clear it. I don't know what to do in my life. Or somebody else will come. Oh, Guruji, that girl doesn't like me. I don't know why she never looks at me. Whoever comes, Guruji would tell a story. So the young disciple was noticing all this, and one fine day he said, whenever anybody comes to you with a problem, why do you tell them a story? And so the Guruji said, I'm thirsty. Can you get me some water? The disciple thought, oh, again, he starts off on another story that he's creating. Anyway, he went, he got him water in that, they have that lota, that small thing, like a curved glass shaped metal one. So he got water in that, he gave it to him and he said, Piche. So the Guruji drank the water and then he said, oh, by the way, why did you bring me the water in this? Then the young disciple said, yeah, I mean, I could have brought it in a pot. But why would you bring it in a pot? Okay, I could have brought it in a tumbler, but why would you bring me in a tumbler? He said, I have to bring it in something. And the Guruji said, we have to share the truth in some container, and that's why the container of story. So, yeah, I got reminded of that story now, where if you were able to see your story as the container and the act of telling as the building of the bond with the receiver of your stories, then I think this premise will really help us work with different causes and different stories. Yeah, I'd like to stop here. What I've really shared is the premise and the philosophy underlying what we are discussing. I haven't gone specifically too much into the methods, though we touched on it. Reason being that if you get the idea of what's happening, why stories work, and what's in a story, what's in the connection between the story and the cause and what we are communicating, plus what is there, what's the magic in the act of telling, then we are in a place to devise infinite number of methods, right? So I'd like to throw the question open to you. If this has triggered any ideas for you, any thoughts for you, would you like to share with us that, or anything that you have experienced in the past or experiencing now? You're most welcome. What I really mean is if you have any examples or anything is coming to your mind now, you know, um, of connections you could make with some story and with some cause. Or anything else anybody would like to share, ask. Um, you're most
Hello.
yes.
Yeah, this is Swarupa from Bhubaneswar, Odisha. As you're telling, see, when we try luck of a person, how lucky is two persons will sit in. When they say I'm not always bad luck, other person say it's not so. For that we tell a story.
Yeah.
Two people sit in a temple. There is a pies in a bowl. One person ate the pies, he finds stones in that. You throw the stones at the other side. Because it's pitch dark. Other person is hungry, he's not eating anything, but he's collecting the stones. This month ate his pies and see, God has given me, I ate this, and I got my belly is full, you are hungry. In the morning, that person find the gems, all the precious stones, not the ordinary stones. That has God has created for people like us who work in the field. At times, people will be happy with a bowl of pies, and other people will be lucky to get the diamonds. This is the reply for your storytelling. For anything, we relate like that to make the situation happy and to conversation to go ahead.
Right. Yes, Swarupa ma'am. Lovely story. Yeah, maza aaya.
Of course, I'm not a great teller, just a narrator. That's all.
Yes, yes, yes. A powerful story. That's a powerful story. Yeah.
So in NGO, some field they say we are not lucky enough, and no, it's not that. The other person he threw all this luck to somebody else.
Yeah.
So, so whatever is come to us, we have to accept. Accept
Yes.
things, situation, and the presence as they are.
Right, right, right.
Okay.
Yes. Very nice story, man. And I'm also thinking that we should wait for the morning. Then we can see
Yeah, right.
that what we are thinking are stones would actually be precious stones, precious
Yeah.
gems. Yeah.
In the rural areas, in the days, we find many people have many different stories. We listen to them, we talk to them. When talking only things will come out. If we sit at one place, nothing will come out of that.
True,
More we
true.
need to travel, more we need to talk, more we need to explore. Then only we can come up with good things.
Right, man. Yeah, you are highlighting a very important point about not just your cause, about doing justice to the use of storytelling, which is listening.
Yeah,
Most important qualities to be a good storyteller is to be a very, very good, non-judgmental, cooperative listener.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Mm.
When the stories really come, that's when people feel opening up and sharing their stories. Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Then after that, so we relate this sort of stories to the, when we are working with the street children and the schooling, we'll tell some stories to them and ask them, who want to be like that? Then they say they raise hands, that we want. Then you have to work out something. We'll
Right.
not directly say you work or do and study. We'll not say. We tell a story. Ask them who want to be like that. Different stories, they say, we want. Then you have to do. If you want to go to that lane, you have to do all these 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, beautiful. Right? As you said, if you're going to tell them directly, do this, do that, that
Nobody will listen.
they won't listen. True, true.
So Deepa, you have been telling stories with kids, a lot of children. I've seen some of your work in the videos and with children. So how has your experience been with storytelling with children? I mean, right now the children are all sitting at home in this period of lockdown, and schools were closed, and education was becoming very difficult. What do you see the role of a story in children, especially children from, uh, I mean, children everywhere are the same. It's whichever section they would come from. But what is the role? What is your experience of storytelling with children?
Um, it's all the more now. I'd probably say that, with the pandemic situation, given that online space has become a lot about exchange of information, knowledge. I'm not, it's just become like that, the nature of the space. Something to do with stories is a lot more valued now, and is a lot more awaited awaited as it's awaited as a distraction, but is serving the purpose of not just distraction, but also of relaxing the mind, of giving them a space to open up, to speak up, to share, to ideate, to reflect about things beyond, regular classroom. For example, I done a workshop on storytelling and yoga, and one on storytelling and creative journaling, and a recent one for a collection of homeschool of preschools. So there were almost 100 children who were just between the age of 1.5 and 3.5, sitting there with their parents, and of different backgrounds. And yeah, we were just discussing. Children loved the story. They just loved it, and they loved telling their 10,000 ideas about the story. So children want to be listened to, like Sparupa ma'am was saying. And storytelling is a great way for any teacher, any parent to become a listener. So, I tell parents, take it like a 1 month hashtag challenge. You tell 5 minute story every day to your child, or even to teachers, 3 minute stories, or you don't have time, 2 minute story. But do it for a month, and just see your children will start opening up. They will start sharing with you. They'll start talking to you about so many things that really matter to them in life. So storytelling is a beautiful gateway, is a beautiful window into the child's mind and heart. Because basically the message, what I have understood is that when you tell them a story, they enjoy the story, of course, but the subconscious message that goes is, you know what, I like to leave all my stuff aside, my mobile, my laptop, my work, and just chat with you. I value spending time conversing with you. That's the message that goes, whether it's to a child or to a grown up or to anybody. And when you invest that time, in the act of story narration, they just open up. They want to do the same. They want to, converse with you. They want to open up with you. They want to share back narratives and stories. So I would say that is a very significant part. And like Swarupa ma'am said, if there are things that we wish to raise, there are issues that we wish to bring attention to or bring conversation to, stories are a great way to become a starting point, so that we're talking about fear, we're talking about seeking truth or telling lies, or so many other themes under the sun. Yeah, I find stories very helpful, very helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. So, are there any questions? Anybody has got any questions for Deepa, or anybody wants to say something?
Yeah, anyone wishes to share anything, you're most welcome, like Swarupa ma'am shared with us.
Deepa ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
So yeah, even I do storytelling for my school in Hyderabad. So
Mhm.
what you just said, that like it build that imagination and stuff. Like there was a child who hardly used to talk. His parents, like they called me up saying that, ma'am, like they have, like he's improving tremendously because of the storytelling sessions, and they have attended many sessions, like communication sessions, stuff like that, for him to to interact and use to build that thing basically in him, because he's hardly like 8 years. Yeah. So with storytelling thing, I think it triggered his imagination, creativity, what I felt, because now what I see is like he has incredibly improved in his communication skill, and he started opening up in front of his friends as well in the classes. So I guess what you just said, I completely agree with that, because I think it really helped the storytelling to build their imagination, that creativity in them. So I
Yeah.
think that is something which I believe that, yeah, I think they should be inculcated, not with the children. I think even in the not with the kids. Everyone loves stories. So yeah, even for myself as well, like it helps us a lot. So yeah, So I just, that instant just came to my mind, like, to share how
Yeah.
it helped that little child to at least, open up in front of, his teachers and everyone. So now he's like the most, I would say, ma'am, I need to narrate and all that stuff.
Okay.
So yeah,
That's
that's it.
wonderful. That's wonderful.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not surprised with the story you had to share
Right.
because the two, three things that are happening there, they have been offered a cooperative, safe space to open up. Plus,
Yeah.
storytelling lowers anxiety and inhibitions.
Yes.
Plus, storytelling triggers the want to share the story that you've just heard.
Yes.
So many levels, it works beautifully for children or adults. And I'm reminded of a storytelling that I did for Society to Save the Rocks. So it was a session on rock conservation. And
Uh-huh.
I did this storytelling in Hyderabad, in a place that was full of rocks. So everybody was seated up there and I was down. It was a natural amphitheater. And there I told so many stories about the rocks, as if the rocks are talking, the rocks have feelings, and it was entire 45 minutes of that. And I remember a month later, there was a lady who came for one of my sessions, which was at some other place in Tanishq showroom or something. And then she said, I've been following you everywhere after that session because my son studies in a school where there are rocks. And since 1 year, he has never gone near the rocks. I brought him for this session. He's only 4 years old. I did not know if he'll sit for 45 minutes. He not only sat for the 45 minutes, the next day when he went to school, he was climbing all over the rocks and he was telling all his friends, "Arey, ये rocks हमारे दोस्त है, पता है?" And, jumping around there. Yeah. So yes, yes. I think even more than we imagine, that's the impact of stories, whether it's with children or whether it's with adults. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. There's someone who has a question here. Pratik, how to use story writing in professional life? Corporate. So if I understand your question right, yeah, in the corporate context, we really talk about whatever is your communication, right? Which especially is very in corporate language, I would call it, which is presentation bound, which is fixed with data that has to be conveyed, which is fixed with a very specific information that has to be communicated. All that's fine. That's what you already have training in. You are trained how to make your PPT, how to present your PPT. But very briefly, since we're coming to the end of this session, very briefly, Pratik, I would say the core of it is what are you communicating? What is the purpose? Why are you communicating what you're communicating? By why, I mean, at the end of your communication, what do you want in your audience? Do you want to change in their mindset? Do you want them to act on something, right? Do you want physical action, decision making, right? Be clear on that. Second, who exactly is your audience? Let's have clarity on that. And then same thing, think of ways in which can I arrive at this space, where I want this decision making to happen in my audience. I want this kind of possible way of thinking or way of exploring their thinking to happen in my audience. Accordingly, what stories can I possibly tell? Whatever I'm giving as information, still. So one simple way is from your entire information, find, one real story or one metaphorical and analogy story, right? This is a very brief core that I would give you, given that we are nearing the end of the session now. I hope this is helpful. There's also a very nice book called Katha. You can look it up. She's a lady who, the book is written by Shobha Narayan, I think, where she talks about corporate storytelling specifically. You could look that up.
Great. So Deepa, thank you so much. It was such a wonderful session. Thank you for being here. The Crow Tales team. In fact, the company that we formed for storytelling was called Crow Tales.
Yeah.
Storytelling, the one which we worked in. And it's always lovely to, I mean, for many years, I've been trying to, get this storytelling into the nonprofits. I personally have conducted so many workshops with the nonprofits around storytelling in the digital world, because that's what I do in.
Yeah.
And what you bring in today is that that narration of the narrative. There's really a really beautiful, how you showed us that using a narrative metaphor and then connecting with the heart. And while we are talking right now and we're ending this session, my grandson is in the other room. He's in front of a TV. There is a story which is going on, and he is just 1 year and some 1 or 2 months old or something. So he's just so engrossed, and he can be there for 3 hours listening to stories. He doesn't maybe understand the language, but he understands there is a story, and he can make out things. So I can say that that's a childlike thing in us.
Yes.
That story thing, that which was so much. If I see him today, I think we'll dumb him down by the time he's 5 or 10 or whatever, and he'll forget. At some stage we'll say forget all this and get back to work. That's what we do. But that's the most imaginative part of
That's work. That's our work, actually. Storytelling should be our work. Yeah.
So thank you everyone for being here. Hope you have all liked this session. We will put down on the recording. Also, we will share it so that more people can benefit from this. Thank you, Deepa, and thank you everyone for being there. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining. I hope this was of some help to you. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Sanjay. Yeah, sure. I'll just leave my
Yeah, please do also share very quickly your feedback if you can, already find the
This
session.
is my Gmail, my WhatsApp, and on FB, Insta, I'm there as
You're on mute, Deepa.
oh no, I'm not on mute.
Okay. Okay.
Okay,
Right. Bye. Thank you.
lovely. Thank you. Thanks, Sanjay. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.